This is a story that's been going on for a while, and I was kind of like waiting for it to come to a head. But basically, the woman's been found guilty, as we all knew she would. You did it. How doctor realised mushroom cook was a killer. This is a woman that basically wanted to murder her ex-husband, her estranged ex-husband's family, as revenge against them. But basically, I'll go into more detail on this in the article. Within minutes of Erin Patterson walking into a tiny hospital in rural Victoria, Dr. Chris Webster realised she was a cold blooded killer. I knew, he tells the BBC. I thought, okay, yep, you did it, you heinous individual, you've poisoned them all. Dr. Webster had spent the morning frantically treating two of the four people. A jury this week found Erin had intentionally fed toxic mushrooms concealed in a hearty beef Wellington lunch served at her home in July of 2023. There are other like specific details which I'll go into in a wee minute. She was convicted of the murders of her in laws, Don and Gail Patterson, both 70, as well as Gail's sister, Heather Wilkinson, 66. Erin was also found guilty of attempting to murder local pastor Ian Wilkinson, Heather's husband, who recovered after weeks of treatment in hospital. He was the only one that survived. But initially, when Heather and Ian presented to Leongatha Hospital with intense gastroenteritis like syndromes, Dr. Webster and his team thought they were dealing with a case of mass food poisoning. Heather had described for him a lovely afternoon at Erin's house. The physician told the trial. I did ask Heather at one stage what the beef Wellington tasted like, and she said it was delicious. Dr. Webster said his suspicion had fallen on the meat, so the doctor took some blood samples as a precaution and sent them off for analysis in a town with better medical facilities before hooking the Wilkinsons up with fluids. But soon he would receive a call from the doctor treating Don and Gail at Dandenong Hospital, about a 90-minute drive away, and his stomach dropped. It wasn't the meat, it was the mushrooms, she told him, and his patients were on the precipice of an irreversible slide towards death. He immediately changed tack, beginning treatment to try and salvage their failing livers and preparing to transfer them to a larger hospital where they could receive specialist care. It was at this point that someone rang the bell at the front of the hospital. Through a Perspex security window was a woman telling him she thought she had gastro. I'm like, oh, hang on, what's your name? And she said, Erin Patterson, Dr. Webster says. The penny dropped, it's the chef. He ushered Erin into the hospital and told her he suspected she and her guests were all suffering from life threatening poisoning from toxic mushrooms. He quizzed her on the source of the fungi included in her home cooked dish. Her answer was a single word: Woolworths, she says. I forgot that Australia still has Woolworths. I think we've only got one left. I liked Woolworths as well. And it all just suddenly coalesced in my brain. There were two things that convinced him of her guilt in that moment, Dr. Webster explains. One, it was a far fetched answer. Admitting she had foraged wild mushrooms, as many locals in the area do, wouldn't have set off alarm bells. Saying they came from a major grocery chain with stringent food safety standards, on the other hand, was suspicious. And two, there was no concerned reaction from the mother of two, despite being meters from where Ian and Heather, relatives she said she loved, lay on beds desperately sick. I don't know if she even acknowledged their presence, he says. Briefly leaving Erin with nurses to undergo some basic health checks, he went to see the Wilkinsons off to Dandenong Hospital. He recalls watching the elderly couple being loaded into an ambulance, Heather calling out to thank him for his care as the vehicle doors were closed. Oh, that's kind of tragic, actually. And I knew, he says, trailing off. It's actually quite difficult to talk about without getting emotional. She could have quite easily done the complete opposite and screamed, thanks for nothing. That may have been easier to accept than her sincere gratitude, he says. You know, I didn't catch it, the poisoning, earlier. But he had no time to process the gravity of their last interaction, rushing back to the urgent care room only to find that Erin had discharged herself against medical advice. She wasn't actually suffering from it. She went down to the hospital to check to make sure they were going to die. Because I don't know if the article is going to talk about it, but everybody else at the table was served with regular coloured plates, but her own food was on an orange plate, obviously to make sure that she didn't mix it up with the others. After desperately trying to call her on her mobile phone, gobsmacked and concerned, Dr. Webster decided to call the police. This is Dr. Chris Webster from Leongatha Hospital. I have a concern about a patient who presented here earlier, but has left the building and is potentially exposed to a fatal toxin from mushroom poisoning. He can be heard saying in the call recording, which was played at the trial. He spells her name for the operator and gives them her address. She just got up and left, they ask. She was only here for 5 minutes, Dr. Webster replies. At her trial, Erin said she had been caught off guard by the information and had gone home to feed her animals and pack a bag, pausing to have a lie down before returning to the hospital. After being told by medical staff you had potentially ingested a life threatening poison, isn't it the last thing you do? The prosecutor asked her in court. It might be the last thing you do, but it was something I did, Erin defiantly replied from the witness stand. But before police reached her house, Erin had returned to the hospital voluntarily. Dr. Webster then tried to convince her to bring in her children, who she claimed had eaten leftovers. She was concerned that they were going to be frightened, he said in court. I said they can be scared and alive or dead. I said they can be. I've just read that. Erin told the jury she wasn't reluctant, rather overwhelmed by the doctor who she believed was yelling at her. I've since learnt this was his inside voice, she added. Anyway, Dot's sort of there. You're threatening me. You're doing this. See, these types, this is what they do when they get confronted. They immediately act like a victim. You're yelling at me. And it's like, I'm talking to you totally normally. Dr. Webster clocked off shortly after, but the trial heard medical tests performed on Erin and her children would return no sign of death cap poisoning. And after a precautionary 24 hours in hospital, they were sent home. Guilty verdicts, a relief. 2 years later, when news of the jury's verdict flashed on his phone on Monday, Dr. Webster began shaking. He was one of the prosecution's key witnesses and had struggled with the weight of expectation. If the picture is going to make sense to the jury, if a small puzzle piece is out of place, it could upset the whole outcome of the trial. I really didn't want to crack under the scrutiny. It's a relief to have played his part in holding Erin Patterson, who he calls the definition of evil, accountable. It does feel like there's that reward of justice. For him, though, the biggest sense of closure came from seeing Ian Wilkinson, the only surviving patient, for the first time since sending him and his ailing wife off in an ambulance. That memory of Heather being sort of taken away in that fashion, that's now bookended by seeing Ian standing on his feet again. That brought some comfort. Now, this story has grew arms and legs and it's became huge in Australia. It's going to be a Netflix documentary. It's 100%. This will be one of those big Netflix documentaries. But basically, the woman is an attention seeker. She's a liar and a manipulator. She's one of those types. The specific term for them is a histrionic covert narcissist, where basically they seek attention. They're a different type of narcissist, where regular narcissists are like, I'm the best and I have an ego and blah, blah, blah. But histrionic covert narcissists are like, I'm the biggest victim, and they make up a bunch of lies about stuff that's happened with them. And whereas regular narcissists seek praise and adoration and all that stuff, histrionic covert narcissists seek people giving them pity and sympathy and all that stuff. So they make up a bunch of lies and exaggerate a bunch of stuff, right, so that they get attention. But they still have the narcissist thing of they will try to punish people that do slights against them, even if that slight is literally just not wanting to be around them or have anything to do with them. And they will attack other people to get back at them. In this case, she tried to murder her ex-husband's family to hurt him because he left her. Which is why they were like, that's kind of weird that the ex is apart, or maybe she just wants to keep up the relationship. And yeah, they went there and they ate the food and everything like that. And basically, she tried to kill them. And also, during the dinner, she went, I have cancer. Right, now she knew that they were all going to die. She was poisoning them. So there was no really any way that that lie would come out. But it was her little last-ditch attempt to get the sympathy and pity and attention and all that type of stuff as well. And yeah, basically, this woman is the devil. Right, a total liar and manipulator. And I genuinely can't wait for the Netflix documentary. It's going to be a good one. But yeah, she's going to go to prison forever.